Good morning. I'm Joe Mosden, and I'm here with Alex Levitt, my partner. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra Levitt, and I'm a business and workplace author, speaker, consultant, and futurist. I'm also the founder and chairman of DeVry University's Career Advisory Board, which we established in 2010 in order to empower employers and their employees to do their best work.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And as I mentioned, I'm Joe Mosden. I'm with DeVry Works, which is actually the workforce solution group within DeVry University. And we launched about 3 years ago with a very purposeful goal. In fact, I'd even say a blunt goal. We wanted to change the way in which universities work with you, the corporations. And so our goal and our observation has always been that traditionally universities were focused on one thing, which was enrollments. And that does nothing to solve your business problems. So our stated goal is, our mission is that we want to be your preferred higher education partner, solving your business needs. And business needs to us feel like retention, talent acquisition. And so we do that. There's 3 areas where we help our partners and leverage our strength. The first is around skills gap training and services. And that's where we've taken this huge repository of content called coursework, but we broke it into these micro modules. And so that they're online, on demand, helping you and allowing you to upskill and reskill your employee base, skills gap training and services. We also work with a lot of our partners on talent acquisition. We feel we're one of the most diverse universities in the US. I say that because we actually have 50 campuses across all the United States. And about 50% of our students come from a diverse background, 25% come from the military. And so if you're thinking about being a global competitor and you want to source diverse candidates, we work with our partners to do exactly that, talent acquisition. And then the third area that we work with our partners is around talent development. And that is that traditional piece of helping you develop your future leaders. So talent development, skills gap training, and talent acquisition. And that's how we like to bring our skill sets to help you solve your business problems.
So one of the things that we've done in our research over the last few years with the Career Advisory Board is we have researched something called talent activation. And talent activation refers to the proactive effort to develop experiences for employees that will enable them to do their best work at all of the stages of the employee life cycle, from recruitment to onboarding, through learning and development, and through performance evaluation. And we have realized that talent activation, when it's done well in an organization, it solves for several business problems, including productivity, leadership, performance, and retention. Joe, can you give us a little bit of an example about how you've seen talent activation work?
Sure, and maybe even just open it. The way I talk about that and summarize that when I'm talking to CHROs is, it's about the corporation's ability and their ability to design a prescriptive pathway of experiences for an employee, as you said, through the entire employee life cycle. And that means from, not hiring, but that means from recruitment through hiring, development, and then ultimately retirement or whatever change they may go through. In those experiences, I think it's important, it's not about traditional learning. Yes, traditional learning is part of that, but it also incorporates things like webinars and stretch assignments, online education, as well as partnering with others outside. So it's the entire gamut. Why do you do that? Because, as you mentioned, that talent, an activated talent workforce is more productive, they are highly engaged, and they're loyal. And so when you're thinking about you want to have an impact on your corporate culture, those are the things that are going to drive that. So when I look at that list, Alex, and it's exactly what people comment on, an example might be retention. Like, how can an education partner work with that? Well, imagine some of those experiences you're leveraging the tuition assistance or tuition reimbursement that you might have in your corporate offerings. Those might be 1 or 2 of the experiences along that pathway of talent activation.
The Career Advisory Board conducted 2 studies on talent activation in the last couple of years. And the reason that we did was because we had had a decade-long longitudinal study called the Job Preparedness Indicator, where we had noted a good many skills gaps in a variety of areas. And so naturally, we asked ourselves, what can companies be doing to close some of these skills gaps? How can they activate employees, and what specific actions should they take? And so that began to formulate our thinking around that first research study. And then naturally, after we got the answer, what are employers doing? We began to wonder, well, what are the employees doing? What is their role in activating themselves? what unique actions can they be taking and how can we as employers facilitate those? And so that led to our second study, which was released earlier this year, Talent Activation 2.0.
So what I like about that is that kind of covers the spectrum, right? One of the best things about my job is I get to work with so many of our employer partners across the United States. And what I've actually seen, Alex, is that I've seen the entire, as I said, spectrum of everything from where some corporations say it's fully the responsibility of the employee to figure that piece out. And then on the other end, we have corporations that say, hey, we're going to build this. And by the way, we're going to tell you step by step on how you go through it. And I would suggest all can work for sure. The ones that I think are best, though, are the blended. And what do I mean by blended? You know, I think of it as it's the corporation's responsibility. It's in your best interest, I would even suggest, that you, the corporation, develop the opportunity for the talent activation, those experiences we spoke of. And then I would say you need to take it a step further, which is you also have the responsibility, if you want to be effective, of training your managers so that they understand how to communicate to their employees the value of engaging in talent activation. But then it's the responsibility of the employee to have that motivation to do that. And what I like about that blended model, first of all, I think it's aces in their places, right? The people who are doing what they do best are doing what they do, but you also get a de facto ability from a corporation standpoint of being able to separate your employees, because those who are motivated and want to continue their development, those are the people you should be looking at as your hypo candidates and the ones you want to invest in more as you go forward. So you get that as a nice corporate byproduct, if you will.
I think everybody wins in that situation. We're going to move now to a couple of discussion questions. And the first is, what big picture strategies are organizations using to employ talent activation and make it as effective as it can be? And as we've been talking about, our board members echo what Joe has been saying, that a variety of learning strategies are essential. Everything from in-person courses where you might have a large group of people come together for training, to massive open online courses that are collated perhaps by someone within the organization and of course vetted to make sure they're accurate and helpful. And finally, short snackable bits of content, could be even 30 seconds, where you're just giving a little bit more detail on a core concept that you need to reinforce. If you're doing all of those things, you'll find that people learn most effectively.
And I think you're spot on, right? So that concept to me is almost the flexibility. And part of it also has to do with tailoring the experiences to the audience. And so, you know, an example that I would share that we've done, I think that'll kind of bring this to light, is we work with one of our partners, a global partner, Securitas, and they provide security, everything from global crisis security management across the entire world, as well as fire and security within country, as well as providing security guards, like at these, in fact, this morning at this building here. And you can imagine, so if we talk about the security guards, you can imagine it's a competitive marketplace these days. Yeah. Less skilled labor is actually in high demand with tremendous turnover. And imagine the impact if you're a corporation recognizing a fact that is today, you will probably have 100% turnover in your frontline unskilled management. Imagine the cost associated with creating a funnel for all that, onboarding those people, training them, recognizing they're going to be gone in 12 months. Yeah. And so that was the business problem that we were looking to address with Securitas. And so, you know, most universities would approach this and say, well, what about a 4-year degree? I would tell you, 4-year degree, way too daunting, right? Yeah. From that, and the duration is too long. And so what we wanted to do is to figure out how can we create some engagement, but at the same time help Securitas develop a segment of employees who become learners. And so the idea is to first address their fears, like, do I have enough time? Can I be successful at this? And you do that in what you just said, right? Just these snackable little bites to build their confidence and overcome those fears. And then I call it like pulling the thread. What you want to do is pull them along a little further, and now they're doing 30-minute segments, 45, and next thing you know, they're in doing a couple hour segments. And maybe, eventually, they even pursue a degree.
Yeah, they're
and that was the solution we used to bring and create that talent activation.
That is wonderful. And Securitas is a great example of how talent activation is a team effort. The organization can't do it alone. And the bottom line from the research that we've conducted with the Career Advisory Board over the last few years is that it takes your management team, it takes the motivation of the employees themselves, and it takes the flexibility to encourage learning agility in all different formats. What we really want to see more of is employees taking charge of their own development. Our last research showed, unfortunately, that only about a quarter of respondents, these are hiring managers, believed their employees were proactive enough in taking ownership. And so that's an area where we can do a little bit better. And that's one thing that as employers, we need to keep in mind, that that motivation piece that Joe talked about is critical. It's not just hand-holding them, it's giving them the motivation to pursue the learning on their own.
Key thing to develop, absolutely.
So the next discussion question is, how are corporations using reskilling and upskilling to better leverage talent activation? Now, the first thing we want to do here is define upskilling and reskilling, because everybody has a different definition. So when we're talking about upskilling, we are talking about remaining in the same role but doing something slightly different, broadening your skill set, doing something that might be more strategic. But overall, you've got the same job. Reskilling, on the other hand, is where a job disappears, perhaps due to automation, and you have to train somebody in a completely new role. And that is, together, is how we foster talent activation. Now, skills gaps are a huge problem. Our research the first year in 2018 indicated about 77% of our respondents felt that there were significant skills gaps in their organization. And as Joe said, that's on the front lines, of course, but it's also middle management and executive management are showing skills gaps. Where are they happening? Everywhere, from technology and digital fluency to communication to general business acumen. And so upskilling and reskilling are really an effective way to close those skills gaps.
Not a doubt about it. And just to confuse things a little bit more, I actually share an example that's about both reskilling and upskilling.
Oh, great.
So one of our partners is Chartwells. And Chartwells is a food service provider. They provide the lunch service, if you will, for elementary schools all across the United States. They have a great problem. One is they don't have enough managers, and the reason they don't have enough frontline managers is because they're growing so fast. So a good problem to have for any corporation. And so in this particular case, what we wanted to do is try to figure out, okay, this was a little more in the sense of traditional education, because you had good employees, but you wanted them to have some new skills, but you also had a lot of employees that you actually wanted to put into new positions. So reskilling and upskilling taking place. And the challenge for us in this one was, okay, this was more about tailoring to the environment, the learning environment for our particular partner. As you can imagine, if you're focused on the elementary school or the school cycle, you have a lot more different cycles than you might in other industries. September is a fairly busy month if you're in the school business, because there's a lot going on. It's the first time out. So what we needed to do was to be able to tailor a few things, understanding that a degree may be the end game in this particular case, but that the traditional way in which somebody may pursue it had to change so that we could adapt to their learning environment. So we put those in place. We also added some of the skills gap training and services I was sharing. And then to create some excitement and some engagement, we also put in place some scholarships so they could help drive awareness, get some engagement and some fun out of it, and to help some people out financially. We wrapped all that together so that they could now start to solve their business problem. It wasn't about going back to school. Their business problem was they were looking for their next first-line managers of the future. Right. And I think we kind of did okay, and I'll tell you why. If you could give me a slide. So I say I think we did okay because when I see a slide like this coming from one of our partners who's calling out they had a business problem, that through their partnership with DeVry University, with DeVry Works, they were able to solve that, and they're now developing the future leaders of what they need for America. I feel like, yeah, we got a home run on this one. This is the type of work we're very proud to do, and we get excited about doing.
It's great to see when a program that's so complex can actually make a real difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. And they're the individuals' lives, and then I'd also say it helps change the culture of the corporation, and important to all of us, it also impacts the bottom line, and that's important as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we'd love to share some more information. I think we have maybe one slide to do that. I can share some more slide information. You want to talk about the reports a little?
We would love for you to read our research in depth. You can find the executive summaries and the press release at DeVryWorks.com or CareerAdvisoryBoard.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you.